Time passed, and before long, only 7 weeks remained. 7 weeks, and Azura would hold a great ceremony, according to Dilara. The entire Order of the Black Sun would be there, as I proclaimed whether I would take up Azura's mantle and become her successor, or take my leave. Should I choose to leave, my days at the Forbidden Temple would be over. 7 weeks, and Azura had promised me to have me escorted home. Was that true? Would she really let me go? Just like that? She'd said it so easily, all those months ago. But after everything I'd seen, after everything I now knew, how could I trust her to honor her promise? Not long ago, I hadn't trusted myself either. There had been days, after losing Dilara, when I'd felt completely unmoored. I remembered the lake, the way the water had lain calm and dark, stirred only by the first rain of what later would become a storm. I remembered stepping into it, then another step, and another. I remember wondering what it would feel like to let myself go, to disappear beneath the surface, to let my body sink. I hadn't stopped walking. I still don't know if I would have. It had been Dren who pulled me back, Dren who broke the spell of that quiet, beckoning dark. And sometimes, when I let myself think about it, the truth settled in me like a stone, that if it hadn't been for him, I might be dead now. The guilt followed close behind, for what I'd done, for what he'd suffered because of me. Now Dilara was back at my side, and the world felt lighter for it. Not healed, just less heavy. But the darkness that had crept into my thoughts back then had not gone. It lingered, patient and familiar, like a tide that had learned the shape of the shore. The faceless voice had not stopped haunting my dreams. It whispered to me at night, soft and slithering.
She yearns to be your tomb.
The days dragged on, thick with waiting. Time moved slowly. Every hour felt soaked in molasses. The same strange rituals, the same lessons, the same quiet stares from the wardens as they passed. Summer pressed in from all sides, hot and swollen. The air thick with humidity and the scent of flowering vines. Insects buzzed endlessly through the courtyards, and mendaks croaked from the lake reeds, loud and ragged. It was as though the world had a fever. I should have been counting down these weeks with relief, but instead, each passing moment felt like a countdown to something terrible. Then the ash storm came. It began mid-morning. At first it was only a gentle haze, the kind I'd grown used to. Ashfalls were nearly as common here as rain in Foxenberg, soft flakes drifting down to coat the terraces like dust. By midday the sky was utterly dark. The flakes grew heavier, falling so densely that the lake surrounding the temple vanished behind a veil of ashen gloom. Dilara and I stood on the second terrace, just beyond a grove of wind-bowed willows where the stone sloped gently toward the first. From there, we had a clear view of the lake, where the ash storm was thickest, gathering in heavy curtains over the water. "This is worse than usual," I said, tugging my cloak tight. My voice sounded small, muffled by the smothered air. Dilara didn't reply. She stood beside me, arms folded, staring out into the ash with a curious gaze. It clung to her hair and the shoulders of her tattered kimono. "I don't like this," I muttered, brushing flakes from my face. A chill crept up my spine. The ash wasn't just falling. It was closing in, blanketing the world, smothering it. The air grew colder with every drifting flake. The warmth leached from it, as though the storm were draining the summer of all life. I rubbed at my arms, but the unease wouldn't lift. "This isn't normal, is it?" Before she could answer, a sound emerged from the stillness, low at first, a distant rumble I mistook for thunder. Then it grew louder, clearer. A rhythm took shape. Drums. Delora straightened, her eyes narrowing as she gazed out across the lake. Another sound followed, the slow, steady creak of wood cutting through water. Shapes emerged through the ash. At first only shadows, hulking and dark. Then, as they drew closer, I saw them clearly. Boats, long and narrow, their hulls carved from gleaming black wood that drank the light. "Do you think it's Demora?" I asked Dilara. The memory of Lord Helrath's steamship and his brigade of Grimlocks flickered through my mind, and pain flared where my eye had once been. Dilara finally turned to me. "No," she said firmly. "It's the Veiled Council." I blinked, my gaze drifting back to the approaching boats. There were 8 of them, gliding silently across the lake. Each was rowed by ash-streaked Hanzira, clad in wraps, their movements perfect and tireless as they pulled the oars. At the bow of each boat stood a Sayash, high priestesses, all of them, just like Azura. Even at this distance, I could make out their strange forms, some veiled or hooded, others crowned with jagged branches. Their robes were dark, ragged silhouettes against the ashlight. They looked as though they belonged not to this world, but to something far older, something buried long ago and forgotten. The drums beat louder, each played by a Hanzira at the stern. The boats drew closer. The ash parted around them, almost as if the elements themselves bowed before them. "What do they want?" I whispered. "I don't know." "Do they come here often?" "Never." We watched as the boats reached the shoreline on the first terrace. Their hulls scraped against ash-caked sand. The Hanzira raised their oars. Silence fell. Then the high priestesses stepped ashore. They moved slowly, almost gliding, their robes trailing behind them like smoke. The air grew heavy, too heavy, as though it couldn't bear the weight of their presence. I held my breath as they gathered on the shore, silent and immense. Then the temple stirred. From the terraces above, large groups of wardens descended in silence, heads bowed, passing by where Dilara and I stood. She glanced at me. "Come," she said softly, already turning. I hesitated. My chest felt tight. The air was thick as blood. Then I followed her. We joined the procession as it wound down from the second terrace, across ash-streaked stone, through the trees of the first terrace toward the lake, toward the Veiled Council. At the shore, the wardens dropped to their knees. Dilara did too. I followed, lowering myself into the cold, damp ash. I bowed my head. Then I looked up. Just once. They were terrifyingly close. The Veiled Council. "Emilia," Dilara hissed, giving my arm a sharp tug.
Keep your head down.
Reluctantly, I obeyed. The ash lay thick and wet in the grass beneath me, cold against my skin. But my curiosity burned too brightly to stay down for long. Slowly, carefully, I lifted my head again, just enough to look. The 8 high priestesses of the Veiled Council stood along the shore like statues carved from shadow. Their faces were painted in stark, intricate patterns, some streaked with red like blood, others marked by jagged black lines. One wore a crown of black roots threaded with bone charms and glistening crab shells. Another bore a necklace strung with teeth. Each of them was terrifying in her own way. But my gaze caught on one figure in particular. She stood near the center, her long, unruly raven hair spilling over a face painted corpse white. Ash-black streaks ran down her cheeks like tear tracks, and her lips, black and sharp, curled in a way that wasn't quite a smile. Her teeth were jagged, filed into points. When her eyes swept across the kneeling crowd, they stopped. On me, I froze. Her gaze locked with mine. It was cold and searing all at once, hatred pouring off her in waves. But beneath it was something worse, a quiet, cruel amusement, like a cat watching a trapped mouse. Then she smiled, fully. My stomach twisted. "Dilara," I whispered, barely audible. "Who is she?" Dilara didn't look up. She only lifted her eyes a fraction, her face still bowed. Her voice was tight, low. "Satara Orm Harem." A chill gripped me. Satara, the high priestess of Zashlash, the one who'd sent her henchmen to seize me in Blotseth, the one who'd tortured Dren for years in her dungeons. She was a monster. Satara's gaze lingered a moment longer before turning away. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Then a voice rang out, sharp and sudden, slicing through the storm like a blade. "Azura Huthalith." I flinched. It wasn't a shout, but it cut clean through the ash-thick air. The voice belonged to a high priestess marked in violet, her features glowing faintly beneath the stormlight. "Azura Huthalith," she called again, louder. "Come forth." For a moment, the shore was still. Even the ash storm seemed to pause. The flakes hovered midair, unmoving. The world held its breath. And then she appeared. Azura stepped from the crowd, her movements smooth and unhurried. Her robes hung heavy with moss and creeping vine, trailing behind her like a river of grime. She passed so close I could feel her warmth, smell the damp earth clinging to her. The weight of her presence felt immense, like a mountain moving through the crowd. As she passed, her hand brushed lightly over my hair. A mother's touch, soft, unsettling. A shiver ran down my spine. She moved to the front, facing the 8 high priestesses.
"Sisters, you honor me with your presence."
"Spare us the pleasantries, Azura,"
Sadhara snapped, her voice coiled with venom. She stepped forward, teeth bared in something not quite a snarl, not quite a smile.
"You know why we're here."
Azura didn't flinch. If anything, she looked mildly amused.
Of course, but this is no place for deliberation. Let us speak somewhere private,
said Hara, sneered.
Why not speak here?
She gestured to the kneeling crowd.
Let the worms hear.
My chest tightened. Worms. That's what she thought we were. Azura's smile didn't waver.
Because what we must discuss concerns only us, my dear Sadhara. Surely you understand?
Sadhara opened her mouth to argue, but the violet-marked priestess stepped between them. Enough, she said sharply. She turned to Azura. We'll go with you. Azura inclined her head, her smile polite and measured.
Follow me then.
And with that she turned, and the veiled council followed. The crowd began to rise, slow and reverent. The wardens stepped back, parting to form a narrow path through the ash. Delara and I straightened with the others, brushing flakes from our robes as the air pressed thick in my lungs. The council moved forward, and as they passed, the wardens closed ranks behind them, sealing the path in a hush of motion. The corridor of bodies narrowed, guiding the procession straight towards us, heads still bowed as they drew closer. As they passed us, Azura's eyes flicked towards mine. Just for a second, something twisted in my gut. Was she going to pause? Gesture for me to follow. Let me in. No, she did not. Instead, she turned away and kept walking, and the council followed, silent as the grave. My stomach turned. Why couldn't they speak here? What were they hiding that us worms couldn't hear? Why take it somewhere private? What if this was it? What if the truth I'd been clawing towards all these months was finally being laid bare, just out of reach? My face heated up, my fists clenched at my sides. I wasn't going to be left in the dark. If she wanted me to be her successor, if this whole damned ordeal had been for that, then I had a right to know. Before I could think better of it, I turned and strode after Azura and the council. Emilia! Delara hissed, grabbing my wrist. What are you doing? I pulled free, ignoring her. My heart thundered as I pushed through the wardens. The ash crunched beneath my boots, damp and clinging, but I barely felt it. Azura! She paused. Her head tilted slightly, her rotting robes dragging through the ash. She turned slowly, her expression unreadable. The council stopped with her, their gazes turning to me like a pack of Luthraki catching scent of prey. A shiver crept down my spine, but I forced myself forward, closing the distance.
What is it, child?
Azura's voice was edged with warning. I swallowed hard. If I'm meant to be your successor, then I have a right to know what you're discussing with the council. If this concerns Loch Lalesh, if it concerns Zeraven, it concerns me. Her lips curved into a faint smile that never reached her eyes.
Not yet, my dear. There will come a time for you to learn these things, but that time is not now.
My fists tightened. I'm tired of waiting. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. You've been keeping secrets from me since the day I arrived. If you want me to trust you...
Trust?
She cut in, mockery dripping from the word. I stepped closer. You said I'd inherit your role. You said Zeraven chose me. If that's true, then I deserve to... Her hand shot out, clamping around my wrist.
You deserve nothing,
She said, venom in every syllable.
No one does. There are no privileges for those who follow the Erden. You claim what you desire, or you get nothing.
I wrenched free, my pulse hammering. Why are you so afraid to let me hear what's being said? For a heartbeat, her serene mask cracked. Sharp. Dangerous. Then her voice snapped like a whip.
I said no!
The word thundered across the shore. I stumbled back, stunned. The warden stiffened. Even the council exchanged glances, some faintly amused, others concerned. Azura straightened, calm once more. She smoothed her robes and gestured for the council to follow.
Come. We've wasted enough time.
Without another word, she vanished into the ash. I stood there, my arms stinging, my chest a riot of fury. Delara was beside me at once, her voice low and urgent. What in the name of the gods were you thinking? I'm not just going to stand here and wait, I snapped. I'm sick of her treating me like I don't matter. Delara grabbed my arm, eyes wide. You have to let it go. This isn't something we can interfere with. The Veiled Council... I don't care. I tore free. I want answers. I'm going after them. I drew a breath. You heard what she said. If you want something, you claim it. She stared at me like I'd gone mad. You're not serious. I am. No. This is insane. Eavesdropping on the Veiled Council. Emilia, if they catch you, they'll kill you. Come with me. Her jaw dropped. No, I won't go. And you won't either. Watch me. I turned to walk, but Delara caught my arm again. Emilia, stop! Her grip tightened, her voice softening. Please, don't do this. I'll go alone, if I have to, I said quietly. But I'd be far less afraid if I had a friend with me. She froze. Her hand slipped away. I met her gaze. Delara. Her eyes dropped to my cheekbones. I reached into my kimono and drew out the fox paw amulet. The fur was still faintly streaked with old mud, but it felt warm in my palm. We're friends, I said softly. I don't want to do this without you. Her expression twisted. She looked away, then back at me, then away again. At last she whispered something, too soft to hear. A prayer, perhaps. Then she exhaled, long and trembling. Gods, she whispered, her voice shaky. I tried to smile. If we end up dead, you can blame me. I can't blame you if I'm dead. Fair. She closed her eyes, breathed in, then out. Fine, she said. I'll come with you. We held each other's gaze for a moment longer. Then she nodded and motioned for me to follow. We waited until the last of the wardens had turned away. Then, quiet as ghosts, we slipped through the trees, keeping low, keeping silent, following the trail of the Veiled Council through the ash.